Welcome to Author Spotlight. I'm Judy Baker, book marketing mentor, and today I have the privilege of interviewing Reverend Aikya Param, and she's going to tell us about herself, her book, and a few other little juicy tidbits. So, welcome today. How are you doing?
I'm very good, Judy. It's delightful to be here and to be speaking to you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, you are very welcome. Well, I know one of the things people would want to know is the title of your book.
So my book is called Can't Wait to Change, Do-It-Yourself Rehabilitation. Can't Wait to Change. And that's my author page.
Excellent. And so it's it's ebook right now. Are you also planning to produce it as a print on demand book or just keeping it as an ebook?
I will turn it into a print on demand book or a paperback in the next few months. There are a few things I want to do to prepare for that, but I know many people would, that many of us have gotten used to using our Kindles or our e-readers, and many people still prefer to have a paper book. So I'm keeping all of those folks in mind.
Okay, excellent. So the book is currently available on KDP. Here for a minute. What brought you to writing about this topic, and give us a little background about the topic in the book and why you were driven to write it?
So the title itself actually was suggested by a writer mentor that I know who at one time worked in a homeless shelter. And she went in to do her work in the homeless shelter one day and was tying her shoes. And when she turned around, everyone, and they were people who were ex-cons and people who had been in the military and all sorts of folks that had fallen on difficult times, they were all lined up and they said, "You're the lady who can help us, right?" And she said, many people think that people in prison or people in homeless shelters are just are ne'er-do-wells. But don't you think they can't wait to change? That's the real truth. And so that's where the title came from. And I have spent the past 20 years or so working in prison outreach. And that is exactly what I find about the people that I have connected with. And the book is full of stories of people and their transformations or their great moments that I want to share, because seeing how people grow, that really grabs me, and I want to continue. That's how come I kept at it so long. So that's the story of the book, is mostly stories about the folks that I met that just impressed me so much.
Is there one story that stands out of all the stories and the people you've met, but one story in the book that you could just share a little bit, a taste of it with us?
Well, I tell people the most striking thing that any of them ever said to me was spoken to me by a Muslim inmate. I was meeting with him in the visiting room, and it was maybe our third or fourth meeting. And he looked at me and said, "You have given me my humanity back."
Wow.
And I was like, wow, yes, exactly. And I asked him why he said that. And he said, "Because I can talk to you about my feelings, about what happens to me inside. I can't do that anywhere else." So I'd say that that's probably the most impactful verbal interaction. You have given me my humanity back. And I hope I do that in many places, but I'm glad I was able to do it for that young man.
Oh, that's brilliant. I know most authors, like myself, read a lot of books. Are there any titles that come to mind that are similar to your book?
My book is pretty unique. I don't know of any. I searched. I was like, oh, there have to be. compatriots for this effort. There's lots of books written about, a day inside and all that, but this book was written to encourage people in churches to not be afraid, to actually reach out and benefit from the encouraging progress they see. Most of us need encouragement, and so that was the reason I made the book. So it wasn't so many other possibilities. I wasn't writing about criminals. I mean, they were doing their time when I met them, right? So yeah, they were criminals. That I wasn't writing about crime. I wasn't writing about getting even, or, none of that.
Right.
It was all just like each of us is a human being and precious. And I wanted to encourage folks in any kind of humanitarian group and in churches to give it a try and reach out and give that encouragement and reach out their hand. So I couldn't find any other ones that I could say, oh yeah, look, here's one just like mine.
Well, that's really interesting. I'm wondering, now I have to admit, I have not read it. I've heard about it for years and years and years. It's in my library, but I haven't read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Would that have some similarities, or maybe complementary to your book?
Well, that's quite a wonderful thing to say about my book, but it might, in the sense that he was, I think his attitude of maintaining his humanity and a positive outlook no matter what, under the most horrendous conditions, that would definitely be something I would admire. That would be a book I would recommend and send to inmates to read. And I'm flattered that you even think it's in the same on the same shelf. Never mind. Yeah.
Well, I think it is. I think it is because people have, we can't always control what happens to us, but sometimes we can make a difference in how we react, how we respond to circumstances. And what I'm hearing about your book is you are looking to do two things. You're looking to inspire people who are giving and have a spiritual practice to help people who are in less fortunate circumstances, and to help the people in the less fortunate circumstances to look at how they can make a difference in their lives.
Yes. And also I would say my attitude, and the attitude I encourage in the book, is that people go in not in order to convert someone to their beliefs, but rather to encourage a human being to be the best that he or she can be. So that's the whole idea, not, let's get in there and turn them into a new whatever, your faith tradition is, but let's go in and help them be the magnificent person they would like to be.
Wow, that is inspiring. And I think there are a lot of people that turned away from traditional religions because there was this kind of a colonization mentality and where that came from. Back in the early days of the churches, it was how much land and how much, your land was power. And so this whole infrastructure kept getting built. Well, let's convert people because then they'll give us more money and then we'll have more power in it. And so it wasn't about spirituality. It was about secular desires. And so it's refreshing to hear your point of view is, I want to be a helpful person to help everybody realize who they are. And it's not about this religion or that religion. That's very, very special.
That is correct. That's exactly how I feel.
Now, I asked you a question earlier, and I think I want you to share this with the audience. How your name is very unusual. And my first thought was, well, maybe it's a different language. Where does it come from? I typically do ask this question of people, so this isn't off the wall. Would you tell us how where your name comes from? What's the significance behind it?
Probably many years ago now, since I've had a nice long life, I'm grateful. I studied Sanskrit and Vedanta with Swami Dayananda Saraswati. He's now the late Swami Dayananda. And at one point in our study, not really knowing how I should do this, I decided to ask him for a name to bless I was almost finished with the study. And so, as I say, I didn't have any idea how I was supposed to do this, or that there was an actual day when names were given out, or I didn't know. I just asked him, and I think I asked him to give it to me on my birthday, of all things. So he he seems a little surprised, but he agreed to do that. And we were studying a commentary that used the phrase Jiveshwara Aikyam. And Aikya, which is my name that he gave me, came from that. The word Aikyam means oneness. And so it was the oneness between the Lord, between the everything, and the individual, just the oneness of everything. And so that became my name. And since, unbeknownst to me, probably everyone else secretly wanted a name too. And so when I received the name, and of course I was excited, I put it on a name badge. Hello, my name is, and went to dinner, and it caused a major uproar because everyone thought, what? I want a name too. How come she got one and not me? So it was such an uproar that Swamiji gave everybody a name.
Oh my gosh.
And whether they wanted it or not. So some people really thought that was a little too much of an Indian, Indian food's okay, but I don't want an Indian name. Some people really didn't, and they never used it. But anyway, that is how I quite unexpectedly caused an uproar. So my name, Reverend Aikya, the Aikya means oneness.
I love that. I think it's just such a perfect pick. I can picture this. And you said there were like 60 other students, and
there were, right, I think there were 65 altogether in this motel that had been turned into an ashram.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that is great. That is absolutely great. Well, I'm going to share the screen again. They can find you on Facebook, and it is facebook.com/Writers Outlook. And for the moment, because you're in the process of building your website, in the meantime, they can connect with you on Facebook, and you're active there. So, they'll be able to, talk to you and follow you and all of those good things. And if there was something you would like us to do to help you to get the message out about your book and about the service that you're doing, what would you like us to do? How could we best help you?
Well, I definitely would encourage people not to be afraid to reach out to people who either are currently in their local jail or a prison nearby. And to realize that everyone, just think about yourself and how much you have changed in the last even 5 years. And to realize that every person, even if they have prison in their background, they have, during the time they were in prison, they grew, and they've grown so much more since. To realize, to look for the good in the person first and not worry too much about their history. That would be a great thing for people to do, to make it possible for all of us to move forward with the participation of everyone's talent and encouragement and intelligence, that we not keep anybody out because they have maybe time in prison in their background.
Mhm.
Keeping your mind, sharp. Don't be foolish.
Well, definitely. Are you in a formal program where you go into prisons, or are you doing this on your own? How are you participating?
So I have what they call a focus ministry in my church that's called New Thought Prison Outreach. And we do a number of things. I have definitely gone into prisons and visited, as I was telling you about that young man who said to me, "You have given me my humanity back." We
Right.
also send spiritual books,
Uh-huh.
some that are created by or books we consider inspiring, like Viktor Frankl's book, for example,
Right.
and some from our own religious group, Centers for Spiritual Living.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also watch over a group that's where everything started, Circle of Love Inside, it's called. And that's with Amma's organization. Amma is the South Indian humanitarian woman who, up until the virus, traveled all around the world, hugging people, showing her unconditional love by giving everybody a hug. So Circle of Love Inside is predominantly a correspondence
Mm-hmm.
effort. So we have several hundred letter writers across the country who each of them write to maybe 2 or 3 inmates each. So we probably have quite a few folks there. And we also I'm going to ask that any of her books, any books put out by her organization, be sent for free to prison inmates. And so it's quite easy and doesn't cause my budget to go south at all for me to send the books that her organization puts out for free. I just have to ask for them. So,
Well, that's amazing. Is there anything else you'd like us to know before we wrap up today?
oh, just discover what is good about yourself and let it shine. One thing my spiritual teacher suggested was for each of us to know what it is, what our strong point is, what our good thing is, and to put it on the calendar so that it shows up as often as possible. And that way we will have very little time to do all the nasty things we might otherwise do.
That is wonderful. Well, I have so enjoyed our conversation today, and I encourage all of you to check out
Can't
Aikya's
wait
book
to change.
and to go to her Facebook page, and she's going to have more information about what's coming up and all of the organizations that we spoke about today. So with that, this has been Author Spotlight with Judy Baker, Book Marketing Mentor. And if you'd like to be in the spotlight, come on over to bookmarketingmentor.com and sign up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy.